I'm just going to ask him. Okay, so I'm here with Michael, Munster organiser for camp. I'm just going to ask him. Okay, so I'm here with Michael, Munster organiser for CATU. Just a quick interview with him for our homelessness housing crisis project. So basically, what inspired you to join CATU? Can you give a brief explanation, and how long have you been involved in the organisation for as well?
Yeah, sure. I suppose as a young person in this country, I've both witnessed and felt the effects of the housing crisis we were in firsthand, and with my peers. Half my friends have emigrated, the other half is still living at home with their parents, and then the lucky few who have found a place to live are pretty much living in glorified slums, infested with mold, rats. This is really appalling living conditions.
Yeah.
So that what kind of motivated me into looking for answers and solutions to the housing crisis, which then led me on to CATU. And I kind of saw that CATU was one of the only organizations who are actually leading the fight on the ground, taking the action straight to people who are causing it, whether that be the government, councils, or individual landlords or corporate landlords. So I joined about a year ago, and then found myself in a job within 3 or 4 months as a Munster organiser.
Can you share a bit about that role? Can you share a bit about your role within CATU and how, what you would do on a day-to-day basis?
So I explained the concept of CATU first. So CATU is an all-Ireland tenancy union, which is a relatively new concept in Ireland. And what a tenancy union is pretty much similar to a trade union in the sense that we have members, due-paying members, who then have issues, whatever the issues, normally around housing. We also deal with community issues, and we fight for them. And we normally are a lot more inclined to take action, which trade unions haven't really been the last 20, 30 years. So we would be considered a fighting union, a fighting tenancy union, where we take direct action directly to those who are responsible. One of the reasons I joined as well was we win all the time. Just this morning, we stopped a pretty violent illegal eviction so we have branches in every county across Ireland, and sometimes multiple in one county or cities. But we ensure that the branches are functioning properly and they're kind of fulfilling their kind of overall aim.
Yeah.
And branches would vary in size. So I'm Munster organiser, so I'll have the Cork, Limerick, would be my 2 biggest city branches with over hundreds of members in both. And then you have the kind of small rural branches. They all have different characteristics and also deal with different issues, while some of the kind of acute issues in Clare versus Cork City, rural Clare and Cork City might be the same in relation to mold, damp, whatever. You do have very regional issues that are as Airbnb and holiday homes, you have much bigger problem in Clare than would be in Cork City. So in that sense, the job is quite interesting, kind of dealing with different areas, new people, different people, and everyone's in CATU is really quite motivated in putting an end to the housing crisis and fighting against it. My day-to-day stuff would be just travel around and meet new people, meet new members, meet existing members. I give a lot of trainings, so I kind of would be skilling up the kind of volunteer organisers and ensuring that they can take on roles. It's not, my job is basically facilitating other people to organise, not being an organiser myself. So yeah.
Great. In your experience, what are some of the main factors contributing to the housing crisis, homelessness in communities around the country? Or would you even have any contributing factors? Do you think it's more than just a simple contributing factors, or do you think there's more to it than that? Or what, from your experience working in CATU, what would you say is something?
Yeah, well, landlordism, or a version of commodification of housing, in the sense that we see housing as a good to be sold, and this, because housing is seen as a commodity and it's commodified, it makes a lot more sense for the people who hold the power in this country, which is the landlord class, to then restrict that supply, whether that be keeping houses vacant or keeping derelict housing, in order to drive up both housing prices and also rent. So in reality, when we talk about a housing crisis, we're not talking about a housing crisis of supply or of, well, the building quality might be poor. Talking about what housing policies do we correct, or you should still have the recording, but you should still save automatically.
Yeah, I can just edit it anyway. landlordism in this country, commodification of houses. Can you describe any memorable interactions or experiences you've had with working in CATU, either with landlords, tenants, people in emergency accommodation, anything that sticks in your mind, good or bad, doesn't matter, good or bad, that really sticks out to you and kind of makes you want to keep working in CATU and improve the situation? Or is it a thing that's like, yes, this is why I'm still doing it, because of something like this, on either good or bad?
Yeah. I suppose what have been like, so you have interactions all the time with a lot of, number one, I'm quite like impressed by, it's more so like there's a lot of myths, I feel like, around the housing market, and also like organizing as well, and like political organizing,
Yeah.
which have kind of like made itself clear to me. Like with organizing, I suppose like people are very inclined to think that working class communities and working class people don't know what they want politically, or don't know what they want like materially, that they're kind of has a lesser conscience, or that they don't know what's good for them and their community. That's a complete lie. Like we're dealing in a lot of communities, a lot of like communities have been like completely neglected and left out from both both an economic standpoint, but also a political standpoint, in the sense that they haven't been organized or in any like political organization, not a political party, but like a politicized organization, which is like fighting for their material interests in like decades. People put up to lack of education, or like what, there's just no organization there for them to channel that kind of energy into. And what we're finding with CATU is CATU's kind of filling that need, that we're finally empowering communities and tenants to kind of stand up and fight for themselves. And when you do empower those people, they mightn't be like the most politically educated people, but their organization skills far surpass Wi-Fi, like the politicized people, in terms of like people who are very involved in political parties or would call themselves politically educated. So that's one myth. Another myth, I suppose, would be it's around landlords, but like how we always hear in the media about all these like mom and pop landlords, all these small landlords leaving the market, selling up, and how that's like an inherently negative thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you now, mom and pop landlords and the small time landlords are the most like brutal and absolutely proper slumlords. They're the worst ones we deal with in CATU. And the rationale I've kind of thought to myself is because they honestly believe that they are providing a service to people, that they are doing good for this world by charging someone unbelievable rent with slum-like conditions, and they still feel good about themselves because they think they're providing a service. Well, if you go against a vulture fund or a corporate landlord, they don't have this false romanticism around what they're doing. They know that they're doing this to make a profit, and they'll tell you that as well. And they don't beat around the bush. So the mom and pop landlords, and also like, they leave the market. The house doesn't leave the market. The house is still there. If anything, it's like we talk about home ownership, but we want more people to buy homes. When they leave the home, that frees up a home for someone to buy it as their main home. Now that doesn't happen. Normally, it's bought by vulture funds or corporate landlords. We also find in CATU that it's a lot easier to deal with these mom and pop landlords. They break the law so much. Well, we actually have like a lot of strugglings with dealing with like corporate landlords and vulture funds, because they obviously hire a large team of lawyers to make sure that they buy the book. Not always. Sometimes they kind of venture to gray areas, but it's a lot easier to fight a landlord who's broken the law than it is not. That's that would
be your main takeaways.
Hear new things of them. Yeah.
And like, how long have you been in the role as Munster organiser for? A few months now. Have you noticed any changes or progress in the issues that CATU addresses, or is it very slow? Or have you noticed anything progressing in terms of the landlords and housing crisis?
Yeah, no, I definitely have noticed a huge difference. Mainly just from campaigns we ran. So, for example, now in Cork, we're running a campaign around public housing tenants, so council tenants in Mayfield. And we started this campaign about 3 months ago. So it was like right as I just kind of came into the role. And we like what we do when we're recruiting or kind of getting the word out there, we'd be going like door knocking. And when we went out there first, we kind of wear these green high-vis kind of like flyers, whatever. We're knocking on doors and all. Like people are very like standoffish. People are not used to people knocking. Like when someone knocks on someone's door, it's normally to ask for a vote, it's a political thing, or to sell something. So people are very like gonna go away, whatever. Or they think when you're talking about the council, they think we're council workers. So there's a lot of like hostility, like hesitation to kind of talk to us. But we kept going out once, twice a week, and then 2 weeks ago where we had about 30 residents show up, and about another 10 or 15 give apologies. We had another meeting there last night where we had 15 residents show up to kind of protest. So like the appetite is there, and what we're doing now at CATU, and it's like a big snowball effect. Well, the more work we do, the more our name gets out there, the more people will look towards us.
Yeah.
So even in the past 4 months, like saying 4 months makes it seem short, but Jesus, it was a long time to me. How I've also came on and like developed my organizational skills as well, but also like people around me, like volunteer members.
So you are seeing progression.
A huge difference.
You are seeing a positive progression or a positive change so far in your role.
In an organizational sense, not in a situational sense. Like the housing crisis is certainly getting worse. Which will also just
and along with those, like the housing crisis is getting worse. Along those lines, what's one of the biggest challenges you face in CATU? And what would be the biggest challenge you face?
In CATU, I suppose people being skeptical of the union model. Like, you know, when we go like door knocking or we're stalling, like everyone agrees there's a housing crisis.
Yeah.
But people would, like a lot of people have just accepted it and been like, it is what it is. It's kind of getting people to really fight or like want to fight is what's difficult. And then when they want to fight, convincing them that, so the last like 40 years of politicization of Ireland, or like fighting these issues, have been around mobilizing. So getting 100,000 people out for a big protest, like what we did for the water charges, that ultimately is not a sustainable model. Like you can't like organizing is what we need to do in terms of like building up a mass organization of people who are organizers and are heavily invested and both like have the skills to sustain the organization. But that is like super difficult and very tedious. Like you have to be, again, we're out in the doors twice a week, plus the amount of admin stuff, plus the amount of planning that went into the planning campaign to then get 40 members, which we call it obviously a big success.
Yeah.
But the amount of work that went into that to get that meeting with 40 people, it was huge. So now it's not only about getting people willing to fight, but about convincing them that our model is the best model, which I think we've proven. And not only us proven, but it's been proven in other instances as well, whether abroad or in Ireland. So that would be the biggest difficulty with CATU at the moment.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like fighting landlords, and like when we do fight, we normally win.
Yeah.
There's very few instances where like the only time again when we kind of lose would be mainly down to like the member or the tenant not being up for the fight 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main difficulty is definitely around like kind of politicizing people and getting them like involved and invested in the organizing model.
What insights have you gained from your knowledge of what insights have you gained from working in CATU and just being involved with tenants on a day-to-day basis?
Are you back?
Yeah. So I was just asking there, like, what insights have you gained from your work with CATU in terms of how tenants are being treated, how landlords operate, what the government is doing? Have you learned anything that you didn't know before you got into this role that you've realized now and you think more people should know about, or just anything along those lines, really? Has there anything that you've learned that you hadn't known before in terms of anything that
in terms of what I would have known before, not too much, except the kind of the myths we talked about earlier. But what I would make clear that people don't understand is like the level of savagery like landlords can get to. Like we had this case in Clare of this very prominent member, I won't mention the name, very prominent landlord, like a big gap player. Um, and everyone we asked told us, even members of our own CATU group were very shocked. Not shocked, but they were like, when his name came and there was a dispute between our member and him as a landlord. Our members who would be kind of friendly with the family was saying, "Oh, don't worry, like they're the nicest people ever."
Yeah.
But honestly, it was one of the most brutal cases. It ended up being the tenant while out, the day before her young kid's birthday party, which was meant to be at the house.
Yeah.
Locks changed, evicted into homelessness. And
Oh,
it's like, and we also had a meeting with the landlord. And the landlord was the most like bitter prick, for lack of a better word, like I've ever met. So this goes to show you, can be the nicest person ever outside of that kind of economic relationship between like landlord or tenant. Well, end of the day, when it comes to money,
yeah. Completely
they're
different
just like
person.
completely, and not even completely outside the legal aspect as well, like breaking every single law, and yet no repercussions, zero
That,
repercussions.
so that's a big insight that a lot of people wouldn't know, is just how far these landlords will go sometimes to
Yeah,
get what they
and
want and
complete,
get what they need, or
yeah,
what they think that they want and need.
and like break every single law in the book. Like the law is pretty weak anyway in favor of the landlord,
Yeah.
yet they still break it, and there's no repercussions. There's no enforcement. We've had multiple cases. We had a very famous case down in Waterford where, again, out of the blue, landlord came to evict tenants. He gave him a week notice, illegal notice. Um, Tenant went to the RTB being like, "Oh, can you sort this out?" RTB was like, "Yeah, you'll hear the case in a few months." Landlord comes next week to evict the tenant with about 10 heavy, like hired thugs. Tenant's holding the door with his own. Ended up having back difficulties from holding the door while the landlord was trying to smash in.
Yeah.
Calls the guards to inform the guards that he's being illegally evicted and that his house is being broken into by 10 thugs. Guards came. The guards helped the thugs physically helped smash down the door to then throw the tenants out. And
Oh
then
my
once
God.
guards helped them smash in the door and then threw the tenants out, the tenants like, "Can we go back and I get stuff?" No, it's a civil matter. Guards don't deal with civil matters. So not only are they not being prosecuted for breaking the law, they're being actively aided by the state in breaking of that law. So that's the one thing that's like, it's complete. Our country and the state is completely ran, both north and south of Warwick to be Ireland, all Ireland Union, is completely ran by landlords. Like there's something about, was it 40, 50 landlords in the Dáil of that we know of?
Yeah.
Most of them don't declare their properties. Again, was it all this scandal in the last like 2 years of all these Dáil landlords not declaring properties, which is illegal, blatantly
Yeah.
illegal. You can be punished by 6 months in prison now by the RTB since like 3 years ago, and there's no fuss. Well, if you had another TD break the law for whatever other reason, you can be sure it'd be a national scandal.
Yeah.
So just like it's not only the breaking of the law, it's just how it's like viewed by society as like an acceptable thing for those who have that power to break the law is what is like the most shocking. I feel like people don't realize.
Yeah. And people wouldn't be aware of that. I don't think they wouldn't hear about it unless you're involved in it. Which is definitely something which kind of brings me on to my next question of, like, do you believe there is enough awareness? Everyone knows about the housing crisis, about the homeless epidemic. Do you actually think that there's enough awareness within communities of what actually is going on? Or do you think a lot of it is not being reported by the media, not being... I do think that a lot of people have heard these stories, to be a different view and a different output.
Again, what I would say is that yes, it's not being reported enough by the media and reported in like the wrong context. And people are generally aware.
Yeah.
I think it's like a two-pronged thing where you have young people who are the most impacted by it, who think that when they graduate from college, when they get their nice job, that all these housing difficulties will be solved, which is just not like, that's like based on two things. It's based on obviously the media not telling them full story. It's also based on like looking at their parents' generation about how they got nice homes, the homes being built. That's not happening with us. Like you could have I have friends now who have master's degrees, working big corporate jobs, paying like 60, 50% of their big paycheck on rent and still living in pretty lackluster conditions. So I feel like there's definitely a lack of awareness around like that kind of progression of housing where young people see themselves as like, oh, we'll put up with whatever bullshit now and it'll get better. That's not happening anymore. And with CATU, all the time we're getting like 40, 50, 60, even older folks coming like looking for help with CATU.
Yeah.
It's like the days of like, oh yeah, you put up with a little bit of shit for a while and you'll get rewarded later on are over. And I feel like what the most lack of awareness around is solutions. And this
Um,
you know,
so coming towards the end now, I think. So I think my final question really would be, is there anything specific that the community can do to support volunteers and organizations like CATU, without necessarily joining as well, but like, is there anything more that the community can do to support this housing crisis or support people that are like you that are trying to improve the conditions that they're not already doing, or is there anything at all that they can do as a community?
joining.
Join, definitely.
Like, we are the only organization who are fighting the housing crisis on the ground, successfully as well. So if like you truly want to join, like we also don't expect our members to be active. Like most of our members are passive in the sense that they just pay their monthly dues,
Yeah.
which we just ask for an hour wage, like a trade union, which then not only funds the union, but also provides like you have ownership. You're like paying into it. So like as a member, you do have ownership, and it's a democratic union. We have democratic structures. In terms of helping by not joining, and I also make it clear that you don't have to be a tenant to join. Like anyone can join, like community members, tenants, mortgage holders, as long as you're not a landlord or someone who facilitates the eviction. So a guard or some security force that facilitates evictions. I suppose like supporting us online, sharing our stuff online, and getting your friends to join then.
Yeah. This fucking internet.
As well, to do like keep up the good work we're doing.
Yeah.
Like we do also have like merch if people are living abroad. Like I lived abroad for 2 years and I was a member of CATU. While I was abroad, like I wasn't active, I was just paying my money. So we do like allow that as well. Other than that, like coming to our protests, coming to our events, be the best way.
Definitely, everyone should be joining and getting involved in it, especially because it affects everyone within the community as well, not just the people who are directly affected by it.
Yeah. So you might think your rental situation is fine now, but again, all it takes is the landlord to be like, "Oh, I want this guy out of here," and he'll come to legally evict you, and then it's better to be in a union than to have to join one then. Because we do try to help as many people as possible. We only really help our members, and especially if a member has been active in the union for a while, we help them like not more, but they'll get help faster.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for taking this time and to
no worries.
be with me. I'm just going to stop the recording then now.